As I always say, welcome back, Canadian Baseball Network fans, to the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. We recently had MLB Pipeline's Jim Callis on to speak about a couple of prospects, Tyler Black and Owen Caissie. We're excited today to welcome the second of those prospects to the show.
Yeah, Owen Caissie will be joining us, and I think it's really interesting to hear from Jim in that episode and how high he was on Owen Caissie. And I'm really interested to talk to him about, playing at the World Baseball Classic, right? Especially so young, early on in his career, and kind of what he took from that experience. And also being drafted during a pandemic, what that was like, the training, all that stuff. He's talked also a lot about, training up here in Canada and the differences between that and obviously training in America and in terms of the weather and different components like that. So it seems like quite a smart guy and a guy who really is a student of the game, if you will. So looking forward to this one.
Yeah, he's had quite the experience for such a young player, just 21 years old, and he's a big time prospect in the Cubs system that fans should be excited about. And we're going to dive into it all today. We are thrilled to welcome number 47 prospect in baseball, Owen Caissie, live from Arizona. Owen, how's it going?
Things are going good. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, so you're in Arizona, obviously, right now, as I just mentioned. So tell me a little bit about when did you get down there to kind of start prepping for this upcoming season, and what have you been up to in the weeks since?
I think I got down here around a month ago. And the Cubs are having me and a lot of other prospects in like a camp getting ready. That entails just like fielding, hitting, weightlifting. But it's been good. I've been down here for a little bit, getting my feet wet, just getting used to the Arizona weather, and it's just nice being down here early before spring training for
Do you know
sure.
where you're headed for spring training? Do you know how that's all going to play out yet, or are you just kind of waiting to hear?
I am in big league spring training this year, which is very nice. Yeah,
Awesome. That's the
yeah,
first time, right?
yeah. It is. I'm pretty
That's
pumped about it.
that's pretty exciting. I don't think I've seen that from the Cubs yet. What was your reaction? How did you find out that was going to be the case?
I was back home. I was hitting, and I think our assistant GM Jared Banner called me. He said, "Hey, Owen." I said, "What's up, JB?" He said, "You're going to be in big spring training this year." I said, "Sweet, thanks. I got to go back to hitting." He's like, "All right, let you go." Yeah,
I got to go back to what got me there, I guess, is what I
exactly. Yeah,
think. Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's going to
thank
be
you.
exciting to watch with the big leaguers. You've been around them before, though, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
But before we kind of jump to the current times, I want to jump back a little bit. I remember Alexis Brodnicki of the Canadian
yep,
Baseball Network and MLB.com did a story on you after the draft. And you got drafted in a pandemic year, which was very different from what a traditional draft looks like. Looking
yeah. Very
back on
weird.
looking back on that time, is there anything that you took from that, anything that you learned that you kind of take with you today?
Um, everywhere in base, like everyone in baseball is good. Like even I know there's only 5 rounds in the draft I was drafted in. Like almost all of the free agents that were signed are just as good as the people that are drafted in the top 5 rounds. That's what I've really learned is that from that process is like, yeah, there was only 5 rounds, but there's really talent everywhere. And that's the biggest takeaway I had from it was, whether you were a top 5 rounder or not, people are there's always someone to take your spot.
So
Yeah.
you've really been known as a student of the game. You're still only 21 years old. In
Hmm.
that story, you mentioned things that I never thought I'd hear from an 18-year-old. You were talking about, I think, Aaron Judge's spine angle, Carlos Correa's front arm. Where did you learn to dissect that sort of thing so young?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know. I just kind of started looking at a bunch of like hitting accounts and like kind of doing like deep dives, and MLB Network would always do these like podcasts or like sessions with like different MLB hitters. And they would talk about different things. I was like, oh, stuff would clue into my head about where I need to be in what position, everything like that. But it was kind of just on my own. Even through social media, I followed like a bunch of hitting accounts and they would talk about stuff. I'd take like stuff from different, tidbits here and there and kind of just formulate my own plan on what I needed to do for my swing. But as of right now, my swing's in a very good spot and has been for the last, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. So honestly, I don't really think about that stuff anymore. I legit just only think about being on time
Yeah.
and letting my swing do its own thing and like trusting the process of what I've gone through and just being confident.
Yeah, I think saying your swing is in a good spot, at least coming out of last year from what everyone saw, is a bit of an understatement. I think it's in a really good spot. Obviously, the invite to big league spring training, but talk a little bit more about your preparation. There's probably some young players that are going to listen to this. What does your pregame preparation say look like for Owen Caissie?
Okay, so I'll get to the field. I'll go through my last year's pregame preparation. I get to the field around 11:30. I have a snack. I start rolling out and warming up by myself around 12:15. That takes me about 30 minutes. Then I'll go to the cage. I'll do top hand swings, bottom hand swings. I don't do T work. That's just me.
Is there a reason for no T work?
I did a lot of T work when I was a kid, like a lot. So I kind of just I didn't outgrow it. It's just not for me. It kind of like puts me into bad positions because it makes me like leak towards the ball, like head go towards it rather than staying tall. So I kind of just like the moving ball because it makes me kind of just go forward rather than towards the ball with my head. So that's the main reason. And I just kind of got a nice groove with doing it top hand, bottom hand, like eight each side. And I'll take three swings, nice line drives up the middle or like shortstop away, and then get out. And I'll go back in and just really focus on line drives up the middle. And then after cage work is done, I will go back, eat again, do on-field stuff. Whether depends on the day whether or not I want to do batting practice or not. Um, Even in batting practice, I'm still working on like just shooting the gaps, staying in the big part of the field, and being on time. And then if I don't take BP, I'll just shag, get my reads in the outfield, and then go back in, kind of just chill for an hour, talk to the boys and go play.
So how much you mentioned you go out and shag, get your reads. That's a big thing,
Yep.
obviously, for players when they're not. A lot of the focus is on hitting. How much emphasis do you put on defense during the season and even into the off season?
In season, I mean it's huge. I mean you gotta be a good defender. You can't, slack off in that stuff. So what I normally do in the in season, I'll take one round of BP in the outfield hard, every ball I can get or try to get, every read I will do, and then take that off. And then in the off season, I kind of shut it down for a little while, for like a month, 2 months. And then once those 2 months are kind of passed, I'll start doing like glove work, get my hands back into it. And I'll start throwing probably about a month and a half before I reported down to Arizona here. So I guess like early January, late December, I'll start throwing. Um, but it's a big part of the game that I think sometimes often overlooked. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first got in the pro ball, I wasn't the best defender. But now, I feel like I make every routine play and some good ones. So it's just really about getting the ball in as fast as you can. That's really it for the outfield.
You were originally a San Diego Padres pick, and then you were involved in quite a significant trade. This wasn't no minor league swap. You were involved in a trade for Yu Darvish. Can you kind of take us back to that time and how you found out and how that whole process played out?
I was back home. I was hitting again, and my agent called me and he said, "Hey man, you might get traded here." I said, "Okay." Went back to hitting. I was like, "Damn, I feel kind of weird right now. Like I'm floating on like a cloud. Like this isn't real." Because I just got drafted like 7 months ago or 6 months ago or something like that. And then I would kept like kind of refreshing Twitter, and then sure enough, popped up Yu Darvish trade, and I look at the prospects. They're traded me, Mena, Preciado, and Santana. And I think Davies, a pitcher, was in that trade. And I was like, damn, that just really happened. And I tried to go back and hit, and like my mind was all like bogged and like foggy, so it was kind of weird. But honestly, I didn't really feel like, oh, the Padres kind of gave up on me. They had to do what they had to do. They're trying to win, and I'm just happy to be in the Cubs. That's for sure.
So one thing I like to talk about when we have prospects on the show is how different organizations work. So what are kind of some of the things that you really like about being a Chicago Cub and their developmental process?
The number one thing I like about the Cubs is I feel like it's a big family. They really really take good care of everyone in the organization, top to bottom. I mean, the apartment I'm living in right now is super super nice. Even like they go above and beyond to make sure that we all the needs we want are met. And that's just all I can say is that being a part of the Cubs is like being a part of a big family, and I really appreciate that because I know sometimes in pro ball you can kind of feel like you're segregated, but here they do a really really good job of not only making us feel like we're a part of a family, but player development and meeting whatever needs we want.
So let's jump now to last spring. You had another pretty big achievement making Team Canada at the World Baseball Classic. Take us through that experience and what you took away from being around guys like Freddie Freeman and Tyler O'Neill.
I think my biggest takeaway from that was having a sense of belonging. You know, playing in the WBC kind of opened another doors like to myself, saying that I could play with these like type of caliber players and being around them, I just kind of felt like normal. Like, oh, I deserve to be here. And when I got the call to be on Team Canada, I was pretty pumped. And to this day, and I don't think I'll ever have a better experience playing baseball. If I win the World Series, that might top it. But representing your country is something that not many people get to do, and it's a pride. It's a definitely a pride thing for sure.
As a young such a young player, is there a certain level of feeling like you have to prove yourself and maybe that you don't necessarily belong yet? When you just talked about being with Team Canada, and then you kind of had that feeling once you were there.
No, my thought process going into it was I actually wasn't going to play. I didn't think I was going to play at all. I had no, I was just going to go there. But when I saw my name in the lineup, I was like, all right, let's get it. Then the next game, I was like, okay, again. And then I didn't play against US, so I was kind of bummed, but oh well. And then again against Colombia. So the people are there to see me play. You know, they paid the admission to get in to see me play. So I don't have a duty to, do well in front of them. I didn't really have a sense of, oh, I gotta do well here. I just go out and be me and play.
Yeah. So is there anything that any conversations that you had with any of those guys that were big leaguers or are big leaguers that kind of stuck with you during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one time we were actually at the Cubs facility before WBC were kind of training and get ready. Freddie Freeman was in the cage, and one thing he said to me really stuck with me was you can win your routine every single day. No matter what happens in the game, you can win your routine. You can win your cage work, your on-field work every single day. You can dominate it every single day. And if you're really focused in on that and you do the things that you're supposed to do, and then you go into the game, then you're fully prepared. Even if it doesn't go well, you can go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts and still feel confident the next day. And that really stuck with me.
Yeah, that's definitely important. And that's kind of the mental side of the game that everybody talks about. But when you hear a guy like Freddie Freeman say it, I'm sure it really sticks
Yeah.
even better. How do you deal with those kind of ups and downs of the long season? Growing up playing in Canada, shorter seasons, but now you're playing pro while you're playing 150, 160 games a year.
Oh, yeah.
What's kind of been the biggest difference as you've gone from high school now I think your third or fourth year of professional baseball?
For lack of a better term, screw it. Whatever happens, happens, and you're going to play on that. I know that I'm right now in my career, I'm going to get the opportunity to play a lot. So as of right now, you'll get another shot, and what's in the past is in the past, and just focus on the now. And that's really been the biggest thing for me, rather than just dwelling on the bad things that could have happened, like that had happened, and not riding, not letting the downs get you down, but just riding that line and trying to stay consistent.
Spring is on the horizon, which means so is March break. So why not swing into spring with the Baseball Zone's 21st annual March Break Baseball Camp? And it takes place from March 11th to 15th, and anyone aged 5 to 13 years old can sign up. What better way for your child to spend March break than staying active and honing their baseball skills at the Baseball Zone's top-class facilities? For more info and to register, head to thebaseballzone.ca.
So we had Jim Callis of MLB Pipeline on the podcast last week, and he had you ranked number 47 in all of baseball among major league prospects. I always like to ask, is that something that you think about? Is it something you see? You mentioned refreshing Twitter a little bit during the trade. How much, not stock necessarily, but how much do you pay attention to that sort of thing?
Not at all. Like I didn't even know I got ranked 47th. I think my mom or my dad sent it to me. They're like, "Oh, here you go." But in reality, it doesn't mean anything to me. I know the only thing that matters is when I step onto the field, what do I do? So yeah, I don't really pay attention to it at all. I mean, it's cool, 47th, whatever, but I don't really pay attention to it at all. No.
That's a pretty common answer
Hmm.
among athletes in general. I think that they try to kind of stay away from it and just focus on
Yeah,
the
for
day to
sure.
day. speaking of the day to day, going through your off season, what does an off season for Owen Caissie look like? You get done whenever you get done, October, November, depending on when it is, and then kind of take me through the month by month of what you do to get prepared for a season.
October took off, just lifted, no baseball. Even though I wanted to hit, I didn't hit because I think I needed a break in my mind more than anything needed a break. November, I kind of started swinging in November. I just like to swing. So I started
I
lifting
was
and
gonna
swinging in
say
November.
Owen Caissie didn't hit in October.
No, I didn't actually, which is kind of crazy. That's the first time I've ever done that. November hit, lifted. December hit, lifted. Went down to Florida actually in December at a place called Cressy Sports Performance in West Palm. Amazing place, great people. And then I went back home for Christmas, stayed there for about 3 or 4 weeks. Same thing, hit and lift, started to throw, do some outfielding drills, get ready to come out here. And then here every day I wake up around 6:30, 6:45, get to the park around 7, eat, warm up again, run, do my hitting, defense, and depending on whether or not we do on field BP or not. That's my day. Pretty short right now. But we're getting ready for spring training is what we're doing.
And getting ready for big league spring training, as we already
Oh
mentioned. So
yeah,
tell me a little bit about what are your expectations going into this and what do you hope to take away from it, regardless of how it goes?
just really watch on how the big leaguers do their thing. Stay out of the way. Just do my thing early. Let them do their thing. Obviously I would like to play. But whether or not, if it happens or not, I'm really going to learn from the big leaguers and how they go about their day and what makes them so good.
Is there any big leaguers within the Cubs, on the Cubs right now that you've interacted with that kind of have had an impact on you?
Honestly, not right now because they're kind of just filtering right now, so a couple of days. But no, I'm sure within the next couple of weeks there'll be one or two that are, say a couple things to me. But as of right now, no, not really. But I'm sure that'll come.
Do you ever take time to kind of step back, especially being so young? I find it interesting. At 21 years old, you're obviously very mature, but do you ever take time to step back and see how far you've already come in your career?
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I will be kind of just like sitting in my car or something like that. I'm like, damn, I'm here right now. And like what I had to go through being from Canada and like the journey I had, especially with the 2020 draft. Yeah, I do look back on things sometimes, but I just, like I said before, I just try to stay in the now and really just be to have my feet planted and just like focus on what I'm doing the day of.
Is there anything away from the field maybe that helps you stay kind of grounded? Like, what do you like to do in your spare time? Is there any activity you like to get away from the field to do?
I do sleep a lot, but honestly, I play a decent amount of video games. It's kind of hard right now because I do have a lot on my play right now, but like in the off season, ooh, yeah, video games is a big one for sure.
I meant to ask, I'm going to jump back. What's the pregame snack?
Whatever is at the facility that day. Yeah,
And
it's
what's
normally like rice. It's normally like rice, chicken, and vegetables, which I'm completely okay with.
yeah. And so
Yeah,
what video games are we talking here?
I'll sometimes play Call of Duty, Fortnite, a game called Rainbow Six Siege, which is also another like shooter game. I don't play sport games because they make me pretty mad, so I like to try and stay away from those ones. But I'll play a game that will be the show here and there. Yeah,
Yeah. So I guess one thing about, you read scouting reports on your game, and one thing that people sometimes say you need to work on, there's a little bit maybe too much swing and miss at times. How do you go about working on, first of all, do you think that's an issue that you have? And how do you go about working on that, especially at such a high level where the pitching's so good?
if I'm really quite frank with you, I really couldn't care about my swing and miss because if you look at my stats, I had a 36% strikeout rate. I think first half. I think I dropped it 10% after the second half. But in all, I really couldn't care because when I hit the ball, things go good. So obviously it's not good to strike out 30% of the time. It's just really trying to put bat on ball and not trying to kill it because I don't need to swing hard to hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
So it's just really, just trying to play pepper with the ball.
Is that something that has ever been mentioned to you about something that they want you to work on, or is it just, it's just part of the development process?
Honestly, no, they really haven't mentioned anything to me, which I actually appreciate because they know it's going to get better the more pitches I see. So, and I've obviously communicated that with them. You're like, oh, and what are you gonna do with strikeouts? Nothing. I'm gonna keep doing me, and it's gonna keep continuing to get better.
So you mentioned it goes from 36 to 10 in the second half. I didn't actually realize that. What
No,
was the
not
diff?
10, 26, just went down 10%.
Oh, it went down 10%.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
So it went down 10%. Was there a reason for that? Or again, is that just kind of the ebbs and flows of a season?
I think part of the reason was they were using sticky balls at the start of the year. They were experimenting with the new balls or something like that. They were insane. And then after the second half, they kind of dropped them and used just regular balls. But I also felt more comfortable that I could play Pepper with the ball second half. Just more and more AB. So I think both attributed to my lower strikeout rate was me getting more comfortable and the different ball.
What's the biggest difference in the jump between high A and double A?
The stuff is way better.
Like the pitcher stuff?
Yeah, yeah. They throw harder and their stuff has more bite for sure.
So
Yeah.
I guess going forward, what are your goals? Not only spring training, we kind of touched on that, but goals for 2024. Are you a goal setter? Are you a guy that likes to just go with the flow? How does Owen Caissie think and approach a season?
I am not a goal setter. I just try to do my very best every day. And when I lay my head on the pillow at night, I think back and say, did I do everything in my power to be the best person I could be today? And that's all I can really ask for and really do.
So we had Tyler Black on the podcast. He was
Nice.
ranked number 46 and he's going, with the Brewers. Everybody
Yeah,
knows his success. And I asked him this question. I'm going to ask you the same one because I asked Jim this as well. Do you feel like you're ready to make the jump to the big leagues?
I felt ready last year.
And what
Um,
was there a moment in not maybe not one moment in time, but a stretch of games or a stretch of time where you were like, okay, I can do this.
in the WBC. Yeah. Yeah, in the WBC, I felt like I could do it. It's just all mental. And I'm still figuring that out now. People may say I'm not ready, but in my mind, I feel like I am, and I just need that shot. And whether that comes this year, next year, or years in the future, it's not up to me. I mean, it kind of is based on my play, but it's not my decision whether I get that call or not. So, you know, I'm content with giving 100% every day and letting everything play out.
Yeah, this was a fun conversation. A lot of great insight. We appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you very much.
Was that a 21-year-old prospect we were just talking to, Jackson, or a 15-year major leaguer?
Yeah, that was really something. Owen provided us with a lot of insight there, and clearly takes a lot of pride in his work. Boy, what a treat that was.
Yeah, and like we said, like beforehand when we were talking about these guys, there's a common theme among these high-end prospects, or even like the Matt Brash that broke into the big leagues, the confidence that they show in their ability and what they can do. They really believe in it, and you have to have that if you think you're going to make the jump to the big leagues.
Zibin, Tyler Black, Damiano Palmigiani, many others we've talked to. There's that collective sort of confidence. With Owen, I think what we heard today was, a real clear understanding of what makes him good, right? And a clear understanding of not worrying about others' opinions and just going out there and doing his thing. And you love to hear that, right? It's such a refreshing thing to hear. And winning his routine, right? That term, winning your routine, reminded me a lot of what Damiano Palmigiani talked about, right? In his offseason is winning the day in the gym, winning your routine. And I think that, what Freddie Freeman mentioned to Owen is something clearly he was already practicing prior to that, but has clearly continued to do so. And, everything he talked about with his process and his preparation and his sort of mentality in the game, it's really coming across on the stat sheet, as you alluded to, Matt, as we talked about with Jim when we spoke with him, and a shining profile of a prospect who's on the rise fast here.
And he gave one of the best answers to a concern about the swing and miss in his game that I've ever heard. He doesn't care
Thank you.
because as you said, when he hits the ball, good things happen. And that's Jim said he believes he could be a 35 to 40 home run guy in the big leagues. And I think, based on all projections, based on the way he's performed so far, that certainly seems to be a possibility.
He said so. He thinks he can play in the big leagues, and it's just up to somebody to give him that shot. And I have a feeling whoever gives him that shot will be pretty glad they did.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. You hear the confidence, but you also hear him talk about that Yu Darvish trade, right? And
Hmm.
how he was kind of in a fog and kind of on a cloud, and he's refreshing Twitter. That's the human element of the game that people love. These are still human beings. It's still they're very good at baseball. That's what their profession is, but they're still people at the end of the day. So it's kind of interesting to hear him kind of go more on the human side of the game in something like a trade.
One thing too, you mentioned that and sort of being attuned to that. He remembered all the prospects right away who he was traded with, right? But also like he knew his strikeout rate. Right? It's not like he wasn't paying attention to it. Like he knows the exact rate. He knew how much it dropped as well. It's just something that clearly doesn't bother him. And that's really impressive, I think, from someone who is still so early on in their career.
We asked Tyler Black if he thought he could play in the big leagues now. He said yes. We asked Owen Caissie. Not only did he say yes, he said he could have done it last year. And again, going back to the conversation with Jim, he said he wouldn't be surprised if he's in the big leagues by the end of this year. Now, after I didn't doubt that at the time, based on what he's done so far. After speaking with him, I'm even more confident that if an opportunity arises, the Cubs will have no problem promoting Owen Caissie.
Yeah, and so if you're a Canadian baseball fan, like definitely something to be keeping an eye on this summer with the Cubs, right? Whether there's injuries in the outfield, right? Depending on, what they do, still some free agents out there, of course, but man, there's a lot of fun to be had, I think, if you're keeping an eye on the Cubs and specifically their outfield this year.
Another great guest, obviously, as you just heard, and we have more on the way. So make sure to tune in to every Canadian Baseball Network podcast and subscribe to CanadianBaseballNetwork.com. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And the Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.